right, good evening, everyone. We're going to wait a few minutes for everyone, just a few more people to join in. We've got quite a few already. If somebody can just throw in the Q&A, a thumbs up, or I can hear you, I would greatly appreciate that, just so I know that everyone can hear me. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, we're going to give it about 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Just a reminder, if you want to stick around after this, we do have our PTO meeting immediately following, and we'd love to have you there as well. All right, it's 2 minutes after starting time, so we're going to go ahead and get busy here. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We have almost 40 people in the room, so that's awesome, and looks like a few more people are still joining as we go. But good evening. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to our community this evening. This is a very similar, almost exact presentation, which I gave to the board last Thursday night, in which we talked about Maplewood Richmond Heights Middle School's expedition proposal. It was agreed by the board that we could move forward with this, so we're really excited about the opportunity. There are some parents who I'm seeing on here who I was able to just reach out to ahead of time and say, hey, if you're a parent and I'm thinking about expedition, what are you thinking about it? What questions do I need to answer? And I reached out to parents who are both on campus and parents who are in our virtual program, because I felt it was very important to include our virtual students, and this is an opportunity for them as well. Real quick, I want to tell you that this is an opt-in expedition. We every year, or up until this year or last year, we go to Tremont, and we also take a Gulf of Mexico trip. And we really push hard for families to be a part of that. Excuse me. We are not going to be doing that for this expedition. It's very, very important to us that families feel safe, and this is a family decision. So if you do not feel comfortable with this, and it is outside the bubble of what you feel comfortable with, this will not in any way impact a student's grade by not going. Okay. While we cannot fully replicate the experience on campus, which is why we're doing this, it will not impact a student grade. So want to talk just a little bit why it's important for us. Inquiry-based field study is important. And if you look at our mission statement, it's about making thoughtful decisions and successfully participating in the future. It's about real life experiences. And what we've noticed through both tier 2 or tier 3 and tier 2 is that we are missing the connection to our world and that direct application to the content that we're unable to replicate in the classroom. So it's interesting, as this pandemic started, a lot of the first schools to go back in session were ones that lived in better climates where they were able to move classrooms outside. So I feel very confident in the safety measures we have placed on campus. And we've shown for 2 weeks that it's been very successful for us. And I actually consider this a safer environment because we're out in the open air with students. The other important thing is, I don't think it's any secret that getting outside it's just good for us. It's a great place to address academic, health, and economic needs, but it's also really good just for our physical and mental well-being. We talk about self-care. And for a lot of people, it's getting into the outdoors. So we're excited about this opportunity. So this will be a partnership with Big Muddy Adventures. Big Muddy Adventures has been doing the Great Riverways of the Mississippi and Missouri since 2002. I would not be doing business with them if they did not have a spotless safety record. All their guides are trained in first aid, CPR, and in rescue. I will tell you that we've done business with them before. Matter of fact, my very first expedition in 2012, when I was a new assistant principal at MRH, I was sent on expedition to the Riverlands, which most of these students, our 8th grade students have been there, our 7th grade have not, but we'll rectify that next year. Was getting in a big muddy canoe with Fred Bird from the St. Louis Cardinals. And that was my very first expedition. And they took very good care of me. They took very good care of Fred Bird. And you can see here, these are some students who've been on expedition with us in the past, who are now freshmen in college, but you can see the excitement of getting kids on the river. The big difference here is if we were to take this picture on our upcoming expedition, both of these young ladies would have masks on, and we'd be out on a little bit bigger river. So one of the most important things is talking about the difference between a field trip and an expedition. If this was just a field trip and it was for experience and we were not doing application of content or skills, I would not be as excited about this. But this is real world application of what we're doing, and it ties directly to our content. So some things we'll be doing around communication arts is reflective writing, personal narratives, historical narratives. Every evening we're on the island. We'll be doing some storytelling. We'll give kids an opportunity to summarize an event or an experience from that day, and also give them some time to free write. So somebody said they can't hear me. Can everybody hear me now? Give me a thumbs up. Because if I've been talking this long and nobody could hear me, I'm really bummed out. Okay, you can hear me. Good. So let's talk about social studies. We are at a very pivotal point in American history that happened here in St. Louis. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, that's a picture of a reenactment of Mary Meacham. A lot of people don't know this, but after when we started to educate African Americans and slaves, the state of Missouri actually outlawed that. So what Mary Meacham did was took the first school in the St. Louis area for slaves, and she actually bought a steamboat and moved it to the middle of the river so she could be outside the law of Missouri. We're going to go right by where that boat was floating in the middle of the Mississippi. Her husband, Reverend John Meacham, also established the very first Black congregation in St. Louis. If you look to the lower left, that's Abraham Lincoln and James Shield. If you don't know the history here, Abraham Lincoln's wife wrote a letter to the Springfield newspaper speaking very poorly of Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields then in turn challenged Abraham Lincoln to a duel on what was called Bloody Island. What ended up happening was Abraham Lincoln was able to choose the tool, which was a heavy broadsword. The duel never happened, and I'm not going to tell you why, because that's part of what I have to do as a teacher, is to get you excited about something, and then you have to go do your own research. But it's a really good story. The other thing is Lewis and Clark. It's a heavy part of our 7th grade curriculum, and talking about York, who, for all intents and purposes, saved Lewis and Clark multiple times from being killed by the indigenous people. Mathematics, definitely we're going to go with a more inquiry-based approach. We want kids to figure out how to use math to figure out how much mud is in the water of the muddy Mississippi. And we know to do that, kids are going to have to do some science experiments, figure out what the turbidity is, figure out what those percentages is, figure out how much water is in the Mississippi, depending on how long it is and what's the average depth and the average width. They're going to have to figure all that out and come up with those solutions. So definitely some real world application for mathematics. Science, we'll be talking about energy flow, cycles of energy, water cycle, water chemistry, and quality, and animal adaptation. These are all pictures that we took over the last 2 years of events that happened in either Ocean Springs, Forest Park, LaBarque Conservation Area. And so we'll be doing some water testing, but we feel we can adequately address all of these things while we are on this expedition for 7th and 8th grade. And very important to MRH is art. And we have studied over multiple years an artist, Andy Goldsworthy. He uses nature to create art, and eventually nature takes it back, which reinforces our idea of leave no trace. So we'll be doing some of that on the island as well. And for the record, if you go back and look at this slide, 3 of these artworks are actually Andy Goldsworthy pieces, and 3 of them are MRH middle school student pieces. So if you want to take a guess at what those are and send me an email, I'm happy to answer you back if you get those accurate. So what do the expeditions look like? We'll be running 2 expeditions a week. One will leave Monday and get back on Wednesday. The other one will leave on Thursday and get back on Saturday. We are asking as much as possible for parents to provide transportation, but we also understand there could be some equity issues or transportation issues, and we want as many kids to participate as possible. We'll be going in small groups of 20 to 25. But if kids do need transportation, we are going to have some charter buses or school charter buses to take students to Columbia Bottoms, which is about 40 minutes north of St. Louis, where we'll be putting in on the Missouri River. You can see here that blue shade on the United States there is the watershed where that flows out to near where we're at when we're on our Ocean Springs trip. And day 1 is going to be spent on our big watershed and actually on the Missouri River as we approach the Mississippi. Sometime around lunchtime, we're going to pull over, have lunch. And sorry, I'm getting some glitches on my screen, ladies and gentlemen, so just bear with me. We'll pull over to the island there. We'll have some sack lunches. I'll go in a little bit more about how we're going to keep students safe with food here in a few minutes. So that'll be day 1. We arrive at, and then after lunch, we continue. We arrive at island number 2, which is Mosenthine. And there we will set up camp for the next 2 days. When I tell you it's an island, it is an island in the middle of the Mississippi. The really nice part is a lot of people don't know this, but there is, in a later picture, I'm going to go back. So if you see this little chute right here, that's actually a barge chute. So the waters here are not navigable by barges, but they are by canoes. So a large portion of our trip, there will not even be barges on the part of the river where we're at. So at the end of day 1, we end up at the island. We spend all day, day 2 there. Students will be able to fish the mighty Mississippi. It'll be interesting because that is a really good time to fish the Mississippi. There are times of the year where people are pulling out, 50, 60, 70 pound catfish. I don't know if we're going to have the gear for that, but we sure are going to try. And that starts a great conversation around animal adaptation and what we're catching out there and how animals have adapted over time. Also during that time, we'll have different experiments set up around the island, different activities, but it's a very large island where students will be able to space out and safely socially distance. And again, our group sizes that we're aiming at are 20 to 25 students on each trip. So very manageable. Staffing on those, we're going to have 4 staff members or guides from Big Muddy Adventures. And then we will have minimum of 3, sometimes 4 staff members from MRH on each expedition. Of those staff members, there will be an administrator, either myself or Mr. Flores, who is on every single trip as well. On day 3, we get back in the canoes and we head for the St. Louis Arch. And I just can't help but think how epic it is going to be for students to arrive on the landing of the arch. And that's where parents can pick up their students. Transportation is an issue. Again, we'll get them a ride back to school. But if that's on a Wednesday or a Saturday, they'll need picked up as soon as we get back to school. The big difference here is this picture was taken pre-COVID. So if this was our students, they would be 6 feet apart and we would also be wearing masks. So here are the non-negotiables of any expedition that we're going to do, and that's consistent and proper mask wearing all day, every day. You may have already seen this. So these are the same things that we're doing inside of school. Proper social distancing, CDC recommends 3 to 6 feet all day, every day. When we're in the building here at school, we're really pushing that 6 feet. I'll show you one picture of the canoe later. There's about just at 3.5 to 4 feet in between each seat on the canoes. We'll be encouraging proper hand sanitizing each time we enter or exit an activity. So if a student's getting off, sorry, my lights just went out in the office. I think it's time for me to go home. So sorry. So each time they get out of the canoe, each time they go to a new activity, they leave an activity, we're going to be hand sanitizing. In addition, every morning, every night, so when students wake up and when they go to bed, we will be doing daily health checks with those students. More than likely, that'll be me or Mr. Flores walking around with a check sheet, making sure we're discussing the health of every single student. Some of the students may take the bus. Same precautions we take during the school year. Students are going to wear a mask. It's mandatory. Limited ridership per bus, only 23 students. They're going to be hand sanitizing upon entry, no food or drink to be consumed, and there will be one student per seat unless they are from the same household. Obviously, we're going to be talking to students about the proper way to wear a mask. And this is something that we talked to the Board of Education about, we've presented to the community, is what we expect outside of school. And this gives us a really good opportunity to teach those skills outside the general four walls of a classroom. And you can read these, but we want to make sure, again, students are wearing masks, we're avoiding crowded spaces. We're going to be on our own island on the Mississippi, so I don't think we're going to have any crowding. Not attending enclosed gatherings in tight spaces. Don't think we got to worry about that on an island. And also just being vigilant about your and other people's health. We have students here and teachers here that I tell them that it's everybody's responsibility, and we're going to point out when people aren't following our guidelines. So what does food handling look like for us? Big Muddy Adventures will be handling all the food for us. They have been through training for pre-packaging meals and food handling. So breakfast and lunches will be pre-packaged, which really kind of hurts my heart as a National Green School and Best of Green School. But that's what we need to do to make sure that our students are safe on this trip. Dinners will be prepared by Big Muddy staff. They will be wearing masks. They will be wearing gloves. They will pre-plate everything as students move through the line. They will wear their mask. They will sanitize, wear their mask through line, get their food, and then move to a space. During this time, we've talked about, we've got enough room on this island that students should not be sitting next to each other. There should be no reason why we can't keep 15 feet between students as they're eating, because what we've learned is a lot of transmission on campuses, not here, but other schools where there's been transmission, a large majority of those are during lunch times and breakfast times. So we're going to make sure that we have more than adequate spacing during that time. So I want to talk a little bit about Big Muddy's staff. I mentioned earlier some of their training, but they come from all different backgrounds. I've had an opportunity to speak to some of them who have led expeditions on Puget Sound, who've led expeditions in Alaska, Canada, the Grand Canyon. So some are whitewater guides, some are just kayak canoe people, but they have a very wide background and they're super excited to work with us. To be honest with you, a lot of the work they do is with more private schools. So they are very excited that this is their first real big adventure with a large population of public school, and they're super pumped about it. But they are wilderness first aid trained and CPR trained. In addition to that, there will be MRH staff members, one being myself, who is also wilderness first aid trained. So this is a picture of one of the canoes, and you can see on the left is a little bit further away. They look a little bit more crowded, but if you look at the picture on the right, you can kind of see the distance between students. And this is also a pre-COVID picture, so we would not have students sitting side by side. If you were to go to the Huzzah or the Black River or any of the other rivers down 44, you're going to probably be anywhere from a 13 to 17 foot canoe. A 17-foot canoe on those rivers seems really big. The canoes that they launch into the Mississippi and Missouri are 27 to 29 feet long. So these are really big canoes. They're the barges of canoes and super stable and safe for our students. These are the Big Muddy 5-star tent accommodations. So every student will get their own tent. Every time a student leaves the tent, so these tents will be set up on Mosenthien Island, and they're going to stay up for the 28 days of our expeditions. Every time a new group or a group leaves, Big Muddy will come in after us, and they're going to be disinfecting all of these tents inside and out. And then they're going to sit for an additional 24 hours before any other student is able to get into them. So truly, we disinfect them. They should be safe within 5 to 15 minutes on disinfection. We're taking that extra precaution, and we're leaving a 24-hour gap in between. And actually, it'll be closer to probably about a 32-hour gap. So I know that we can do this. I know that we can do it safely. We're very excited about it. In a few minutes, I'll be sending out an email to all parents, and that'll just be a very brief survey saying, hey, I'm interested in my child attending. The sooner the better, because we want to make sure that we have as much information ahead of time so we can plan the safest expedition possible. So if you have questions, you can put those in the chat. So I do have one asking about expedition fees from last year. And I did get quite a few emails from that last year. And this one specifically asks about as it pertains to Tremont. So expedition fees each year are not just for our large expeditions. Those cover expeditions throughout the year. And we took several expeditions in the fall that definitely were more than what those expedition fees were. And really what the fee is kind of subsidizing the district that typically spends about $700 to $750 a year if it wasn't for Tremont and Ocean Springs being canceled. So really it's a small portion of that goes towards the overall cost. As far as this year, as of now, I'm in some conversations with central office about if there's going to be an expedition fee for these. I would imagine if there is, it's probably going to be minimal and probably be around $25. So, which is also a very small portion of what we would be paying out, but we want to be very considerate of families and knowing that a lot of families have been through tough times with COVID. What about the bathrooms? Great question. So we're on a uninhabited island on the Mississippi, so there are no restrooms. So what we will do is set up a very defined area for the ladies to use and a very defined area for the gentlemen to use, which reminds me, if you look at this tent, this camp setup here, one of the things we will do a little bit differently. Most of the expeditions they do are with all boys schools or all girls schools from what I've seen. What we will do is we will have some of our MRH tents, which are a little bit larger, that'll be right here in the middle. And then we'll have tents on either side to help keep students separated. Not that we expect anything, but we always want to plan and make sure that we're being as safe as possible. So if those tents were here, we would just set up an area further down beach for the ladies and then a place further down beach for the gentlemen. But basically our bathroom consists of a Stanley shovel. So what personal equipment will students need? Great question. So students will definitely need some rain gear. That's really important to have. We will actually provide the tents and the sleeping pads. If a student has a favorite sleeping pad or they're an avid outdoorsman and they want theirs, they can bring that. But the only thing they'll really need to bring as far as sleep gear is a sleeping bag. And then we will send out a packing list, as far as, socks and, underwear and different things. And it'll be pretty itemized so that you can just do that. One thing that we will not have on the trip is this is a really good opportunity for students to get away from tech. So we will have them leaving their cell phones at home. So administrators on and staff on will have their cell phones. We will have those on 24/7 in case there is an emergency. We don't foresee there being, but just know that we have built in a lot of redundancies in case there is something that was to happen. As far as Big Muddy, they have a crew that is on 24/7 on land so that they can respond to anything. That's part of the safety protocols that we've worked through with them. But you will be getting a very detailed packing list. Can they bring cameras? Yeah, so we have no problem with bringing cameras. We just have to have conversations about, hey, obviously we don't want the cameras to be their cell phones, right? I always recommend in expeditions like this, and I'm not a big fan of disposable things, but the last thing you want to do is drop an expensive camera in the Missouri or Mississippi River because it's not coming back and we're not going in after it. So I would encourage you buy a disposable camera. I will tell you that we will be taking photos daily and providing those on our Facebook page. We should have pretty good cell coverage no matter where we go on this expedition. And we'll make our cell phones available too, so parents can check in. What we have found over the years is that the parents really worry that the students are going to be okay, and the students are perfectly fine, and they get on expedition and they kind of forget where they're at and they forget that they're away from home, and it's more the parents that are worrying a little bit more than the students. And we've come to terms with that. We're okay with that, and I'm okay if I'm the one on expedition, you text and say, hey, Dr. Dietrich, can you just let me know how they're doing? Absolutely. I'm going to probably sneak a picture of them in the canoe, shoot it to you real quick. I'll have to make it sure it's just them because I can't include other students. But I'll get that to you. But again, I'll be posting them daily to Facebook as well. How will students be grouped together? We are really looking at this survey that comes back. And because one thing we want to do is try not to cross-contaminate AM and PM students. So we're going to be looking at that and saying, okay, well, is it best to do it by science class? Is it best to do it by advisory? What's the best way of doing this? So really a lot of that depends on what students sign up to go on this. And a lot of times, we get requests, well, can they be in this kid's group? Can they be in this kid's group? These groups are going to be really small. We're used to going on expedition with 120 students. We're only going to have 20 to 25. But it is very difficult when we start opening things up by choice. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at: who signed up and what is the best and safest way to do it from a district perspective. Quite a few thank yous. So thank you for saying the thank you. Another question: are parents escorting? Because we want to maintain our bubble, we're only taking 3 to 4 MRH staff members on each expedition, and we are not able to take parents on the expedition. And I know typically we rely heavily on parents for Tremont and Ocean Springs, but that is not something that we're going to be able to do on this expedition. How will we handle cancellations if parents feel it is not safe just prior to the trip? Obviously, we want as solid of an answer as we can ahead of time, but I'm also not going to, if they don't show up that morning, we're going to be sad. We want the kid to have that opportunity, but that still is not going to impact their grade. Every family gets to make their own decision. So I have a question about doing rapid testing at the beginning of the trip to avoid mask and socially distancing, and that is not something we're going to be doing. We want to make sure we're staying safe throughout, because even a rapid test could show up wrong. And for us, it's just not worth that risk. And we really feel we can still create a very awesome learning experience for kids while still maintaining masks. Now, I was thinking about that's going to be, because I'm pretty fair complected, but my face turns really red, and I'm going to have my mask on for, I think I'm scheduled right now to go on 6 of the 8 trips. I'm going to have a really weird tan line. So if a student gets symptoms on the trip, what will you do? If they get symptoms on the trip, we're going to call their parents. We're going to quarantine them away from the group right away, which truly, if we're doing safe, if we're socially distancing and we're wearing our mask, we should be okay anyway. But if they do start developing symptoms, we call the parent. We do have a drop-off point, and we will take them to that drop-off point. That will be probably with me, one of the guides. We will get them safely to shore on a canoe, and then you can pick them up from that drop-off point. All that information will come out. Will there be additional expeditions throughout the summer? I don't know yet. I'm really trying to get through this one, and I want to do this one as safe as possible and give the best experience possible to kids. And one thing I think I didn't mention, that this is available to our virtual students as well. You know, because if you're looking at from a degree of safety, I actually find that it is, while I feel completely safe being in school with these students, and the students have been awesome, I actually think it's safer to be out in the open air. So we want to make this available to our virtual students as well. Somebody said, is this for 7th or 8th grade? It is for both. What are the dates? May 3rd through the 29th. So probably got a time for 1 or 2 more questions, and then we do have a PTO meeting right after this. So would love if you want to stay. And I know one of the things is what we're going to do for students in this expedition, and typically our PTO is really awesome about purchasing t-shirts for all the students going on expedition. So I know that's on the agenda, and there's some other good stuff as well. So if you can stay and join us, that would be wonderful. If not, hopefully you've learned by now, I've got open communication. You can text me, you can call me, but look for that survey this evening. I'll probably send it out hopefully soon after I get everything transitioned over to the PTO meeting. But just want to say thank you for everybody joining us tonight. So can a 7th grader be put in a group with an 8th grade? No, we will be keeping 7th grade expeditions different than 8th grade, because the learning will be a little bit different, because standards in 7th grade can be very different from 8th grade. But again, thank you everyone for coming this evening, and we're going to transition over to our PTO meeting. As fast as I get people in as a panelist, they're dropping out. Guess I could have brought our president in first. Sorry, Sarah.
That's okay.
You were actually the last one I brought in. I feel bad. So I was just trying to click as fast as I could.
It's all good.
So, all right.
All right.
It's all yours.
I emailed you the agenda also. And then for anybody else, the agenda is posted on our Facebook page as well, if you'd like to take a look at it. I think we're actually going to go ahead and get started, if Siobhan is willing, with our treasury report. And then Mike, we're going to just have you do whatever update you need to do, info and all that kind of fun jazz.
Okay. Siobhan, you're muted. You know, they sell those shirts on Amazon now. I want one so bad. They don't say Siobhan, you're muted. They just say, hey, you're muted.
I wanted to change my filter so I would just show up like a cat tonight.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, that's my new Facebook profile picture. So
All right, so our checking account balance is $4,357.26. We also have an additional $6,281.69 in our savings account. Just so that's good news. Our Bobo's pizza fundraiser brought in $598 this year, and our expenses have been to predominantly teacher appreciation. We did some nice things for the winter celebration. We've paid for some snacks, and then we bought checks and bank fees. So that's it. We do have budget money for t-shirts, so I think we will be good for Expedition t-shirts as needed.
awesome. Mike, what do you have for us?
Sorry, I gotta switch something real quick.
You're fine. No worries.
Okay. So a couple things. One, if you haven't heard, we did get Expeditions approved, and you probably were just in the last meeting. So we're super excited about that, and we feel that we can really do that safely, and kids really seem excited about it. So I think it's time for us to make sure we match that excitement with the same level of safety. And our staff is very excited about it. If you could have seen me in my office when the board approved it last Thursday night, I was the only one up here, and I was literally running down the hallway. Like I was running, and I know you're not supposed to run in the hallways, but I was, and I'm okay with it. I've come to terms. I was actually chewing gum at the same time, so nah.
Should have got sent to the principal's office.
Yeah. So, do want to say our kids and our staff have been awesome. Like since we have come back on campus, and our parents, like, because obviously our parents are having a lot of conversations at home because our kids have come in, their masks have been up. They are, sometimes our hallways get a little tight. They do. That's what happens when you have a lot of kids and, in hallways, but those times are very small. And so far, we've been very successful at getting back. And I think a large part of that is just the hard work that our parents have put in with their kids, the kids' willingness and excitement to be back at school. Like kids genuinely seem excited to be back here. And our parents, teachers have been great. I wanted to show you, this is, that's our new snack cart. So it even says middle school PTO snack cart. This week has been really interesting because it's the first time that PTO's donated soda as well. And the first teacher came in and was like, oh, we don't have an ice maker because we can't plug in our ice maker because of health violations and COVID. So I'm on the 4th floor, but I got this really nice ledge outside my window. So we're under a system now that if you take a Coke, you have to leave a Coke. So they grab a Coke, they have to open my window, grab a Coke, and then grab one off the PTO cart and put one outside, and everybody gets a cold soda. So, but I just want to say thank you to the PTO. It has been super well received by the staff, and just thank you. It's been a really good morale booster for our teachers.
Awesome.
And that is that's all I have.
Great. Yeah, Jackie. I guess if we want to just kind of just hop up to the snack cart. Do you have any?
I'm just gonna piggyback and thank you guys for the donations. This was by far the biggest donation for February that we've had. So thank you, everybody. I know that we appreciate the teachers, and that's one small way that we can show it. So thank you for doing what you guys are doing.
Awesome. So Jackie, and Mike, I guess both of you, if you could just chime in on this, what was the most well received? What should we be asking for? I've had people messaging on Facebook and asking those kinds of So what are we looking at that's the best?
So I'm looking at the cart, and Skinny Pop goes really fast. Gardettos go really fast. And anything chocolate goes really fast. Like somebody gave a huge bag of M&Ms, and I think word got out. And it's just been like, I'll be walking down the hallway and I see people running out of my office, and it's like, guys, you don't have to sneak it. That's what it's there for. The PTO wants to take care of you. So yeah, but so I would say chocolates, Gardettos, and Skinny Pop are probably the three big ones.
Do you
Hey,
wanna-
Mike, any way to let somebody else in?
Stacy,
Jen Moore?
she's not in.
No, okay.
Stacy Dick was just there, but I just let her in. There she is.
I'm here. Sorry, I left. I thought it was a different link. I'm back.
I wonder if she went to the Zoom I had pre-set up for this before we figured out you could move us in on this one.
Yeah.
That might be what's going on. Okay, awesome. So, and what kind of soda goes fast? Regular and diet, or what's the fave?
It's about even. And beggars can't be choosers, but one person's like, oh, I wish I had some Dr. Pepper, but they happily took a Coke, right? So
And then is the Coke okay, or is there a lot of Pepsi people who are aggravated that there's no
no
Pepsi?
one has complained. No one has complained.
I'm a Coke drinker personally, so I would be on cloud nine if I had.
Yep. There's Jennifer.
Okay, awesome.
No, I just think they're just so thankful that, and what I've done with it is I've just sent an email that said, if you're hungry, stop by, and don't eat it around students. And on Wednesdays, I just push it out into the hallway. Of course, today was a little different because I was the only one here with Mr. Flores. So Mr. Flores and I really enjoyed the snack cart today. But him more than me. So I'll push it out in the hallway, or if we're having a staff meeting, I push it out into the hallway. And again, it's been really awesome for our morale. So thank you.
All right, awesome. Did you have anything else you needed to add about the snack cart, Jackie, while we're on that? And then
No, but well, I'm still taking donations. So we usually drop off about once a month. So if everybody has donations, they can either call me and I can come pick it up, or you can drop it off at my house and I will make sure that it gets to the school.
awesome.
Is somebody taking notes?
Yes.
No, that's your job.
I know, but I wasn't in the meeting. That's why I'm asking.
Ooh. Well, I got you covered for now, Jen. You gotta take over.
I
though.
can pick up from here.
We have to
Sorry.
forward briefly to the snack cart, and we're getting ready to hop back. So,
Okay.
yeah. The next thing on the agenda is about expeditions and the t-shirts. I know Siobhan had said we have the funds available to do that. So, Mike, is there anything specifically that we need to necessarily discuss per that, or you just gonna
No.
send it if you want and we can get that squared away?
Probably what I will do is I'll probably talk with Miss McAvoy, our teacher, and ask her to commission one or two students to come up with some designs, and have them bring it to me. But I think it needs to be like a historical, riverfront kind of theme. But we'll have them probably two students work on that together, and I'll come, and if you guys want to see that first, we can do that. Or you just want me to run with it, I can do that
This
as
is
well.
your rodeo, so you do what you think you need to do.
Well, it's,
So Mike, I just wanted to check, are we looking at just kind of a one color on one side? Okay.
yes, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll probably be a one color tee with one color on the front. So,
Fantastic. All right. The next thing we were going to chat about is fundraising. Our Bobo's fundraiser. I think we did great personally. The ECC had almost $1,000 in earnings come back, and so I was like, oh my gosh, we're a third of the size of the ECC family wise, if even that. I was like, we're not gonna have much come in. I was a little concerned, but our families really stepped up and supported us and everything, and we ended up bringing in $598 for the Bobo's Pizza fundraiser, which I think is awesome. So thank you so much, everybody, for your contributions and supporting that, for everybody who did. We are unfortunately, I think, going to postpone the bowling night that's usually in the spring until fall, fall if we can. It's one of those, COVID. So we're just wanting to make sure everything's safe, and bowling inside of a teeny tiny little bowling alley would be hard to make that safe for a large group of people. So we will tentatively move that to the fall at this point and see where we're at in a handful more months. Next up we have teacher appreciation. Siobhan kind of touched on that a little bit at the beginning. Before winter break, we kind of tagged in on Mike's little gifts for the teachers, and we sent each teacher a $10 gift card to the Blue Duck as a thank you for all of their hard work that they have been doing through the virtual and all that kind of stuff. I personally have received a handful of emails saying thank you, thank you, thank you, that they loved them and were so appreciative. So I think that was well received. Mike, have you heard anything?
yeah. So what we did was we put those in a card that we mailed home to every teacher. And along with that was an invitation for an additional free lunch to the Blue Duck on their first day back on campus. So they got the gift card from the PTO, and then Mr. Flores and I purchased lunch individual meals for every single teacher when they arrived back on campus on that first Monday. So it was very, very well received, and they were very, very thankful.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I was really happy we were able to pull that together and be able to do that for them. And then the snack cart, which we've already talked about.
Oh, and Sarah, I think it's important to say is PTO didn't just do that for the teachers. They actually took care of, our building custodian, which is important because she's really kept this building just spick and span, and our secretary, our aides. So I thought PTO did a great job of including everybody in that giving. So
thank you. I should have said teachers and staff, but
that's okay.
I failed to do that. Thank you for that. The next thing we were going to chat about was the snack cart, which we touched on, and then thank you cards. Were we still wanting to look into that now that we're back in the building? How, who, what, when, where, and why? Jen, I know you were kind of spearheading that a little bit. Siobhan was supposed to be looking into the pricing. I texted you, Siobhan. You had you had a heads up, lady.
I mean, I think it would be easier to set up virtual cards, and to have all the kids in a class or for their advisory teacher or whatever, sign them. But I think that there is something personal about handwritten. So I mean, maybe if we are going to do it, and I mean, I love getting thank you cards personally, and I also love writing thank you cards. Actually, sometimes during meetings where I don't have to participate, I just write a bunch of thank you cards. But obviously not this one. So I think I would still like to do it if other people want to do it, but I think that it could be virtual or physical, depending on, the parent's preference. But if it is going to be virtual, we should provide some means by which they can, like some tool that they can use to send the virtual card.
Sure. Okay. Do any of you guys have any thoughts on that? No. Crickets? Okay.
And also, if it's just like something that I think is a good idea, then we can just like scratch it off the list.
I think it's great. And again, who doesn't enjoy receiving a thank you card? I do completely agree with you there. It's something that I think doesn't probably happen enough, honestly. And I mean, saying thank you is one thing, but taking the time to sit down and write out a card and let somebody know that they really were on your mind and everything. I do think there's something very special about that, Jen. So I think it's a neat idea. I think we can work out some, nitty gritty on how to get that out and about and get it done and all that kind of stuff, and get moving on that, especially now that we're back in the, a good chunk is back in the building and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. And then Jen, you had put student morale. Was there something specifically?
Yeah, I just wondered if I thought we'd check in with Mike about how it seems students are doing being back, and is there anything that we could do for them, to make them, I don't know, just something nice for them so that they feel good. But I want to hear from Mike, like how they're doing, how the morale is.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I definitely, I get a lot of, hey, it's really good to be back, but it's also conversations we see the kids starting to open up more, right? Because they have been, or hopefully most have been isolated, and in bubbles, to where now that they're coming back into school, they're kind of adjusting, right? But you definitely, when you're talking to them, you see the cheekbones come up above the mask, from smiles. And I would say overall, the interesting thing is I would say there's students who we struggled with pre-COVID with attendance and getting them engaged in school. And a couple of those kids are here every day now and engaging. So I think that says a lot about just the safety that we help provide and that they want to be here. As far as what we can do for them, I think just supporting those expeditions, in normal times, I would say, hey, let's send pizza to the advisories or something like that. But we're not doing that during the pandemic. It's not happening. So even if you offered pizza, sorry, I wouldn't take it. So.
Did you already talk about like if we're going to be able to find us, other than t-shirts, financially support, like what is the money situation for expeditions? Like,
yeah, so that was an answer I was hoping to have tonight. But I'm not going to say that the expedition fee is 50, but there was some conversation of having a small fee just to kind of get that buy-in, but then also knowing that if there's families that can't afford that, we're going to help support that. Right. So the most that we had talked about doing for a family was like $25, and, kind of that. But we also want to make sure that if people don't feel safe, that they're not afraid to back out at last minute because they invested $25. Right.
Caroline, did you have a question? I see the hand raised. No.
It's super easy to raise your hand accidentally.
I just make sure we touched on her if she had a question before we moved on. Was there anything?
What do people think? I mean, I feel like the PTO is flush, and I missed the treasurer's report, so maybe that's not true. But like, could we, like, for people who are having trouble paying, could we, like, the PTO, like, sponsor students maybe? Treasurer.
Siobhan, you're muted.
I'm having computer issues. I've got a lag going on myself. I have to look into that because I think we have to be careful because of how our mission statement is written, that we help all students. So I don't know that we can selectively help students. So if we did something like that, it might be that we provide a certain dollar amount, and then if the district wanted to shift some things around, they could, but I don't know that. I have to look into how we can handle that. I would like to look at it's related to our 501c3. I'd like to look into maybe starting kind of a scholarship fund in each of our different schools and see if we could handle something like that through that process where it's designated. So we need to just I need to look into it.
Siobhan,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure whether or not we could, at least maybe for this round of expedition, think about maybe paying money to the school to offset some of their food costs as a whole, and then the school could decide to offset their money to help pay for some students if there's a bylaw issue.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. If we contributed X amount per student to the district, and then the district can kind of figure out how it wants to utilize that money, if that makes sense. We could also do a specific fundraiser where we could allow parents to sponsor another family, and then that money would have to be designated specifically for that cause.
Siobhan, it's interesting you say that. I was just looking over at my email, not that I'm not completely engaged in this meeting. And I already have an email from a parent who was in the info session for the expedition saying, if it's only $25, please let us know. We'll sponsor at least one other student.
Mhm.
So I think to me, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think we could help organize the sponsorship for if families wanted to designate money towards a specific student. I know with the elementary, when families purchase their school supplies, they have the option of purchasing additional kits or designating a certain dollar amount for teachers' wish list. So we find creative ways of making things like that happen.
Can I just say how awesome and lucky we are to be in this district? Like, did any of you have an experience like this when you were in school? I
No.
certainly did not. It's amazing.
My husband and I were talking about that through the whole thing that Mike was doing. He was like, this is so cool that our school does this. And I'm like, yeah, why do you think, I am so supportive of our district, is because we have these amazing things happening for our kids that we unfortunately probably never got the opportunity to do when we were in school. So absolutely, it's awesome. And Mike, I know you like pour yourself into this. So thank you so much for doing that for our kiddos, because it's going to be way different than I know you expected it to be before the pandemic hit, but I think it's going to be great. And I have full faith that you guys are going to make it as safe as possible for everybody, and it'll be wonderful. So thank you for all of your work in that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All
I
right.
think that deserves something off the snack cart.
That's right. Get some M&Ms. Get a cold soda. Just make sure you put another one out there. I think that's about it. We didn't have a ton. With COVID, there's just not a lot going on. So, any other business that anybody can think of that we need to touch on?
PTO business, but I had a question for Mike. So when we got report cards, we also got I think an expedition bill or a tech bill or some kind of bill.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what that was about because I'm quite positive I paid our tech bill.
Right. So I know we have been having some issues with, because it's two different systems. You pay into one and then it's supposed to reconcile with another system. And we have been having some issues with that. So if you got one and you paid it, just give Tanya a call at the front desk and she can reconcile that for you.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So,
Okay. And I know the expedition fee had come through as 50, and you said that's possibly not what it's going to be. Now, should we just disregard that until we hear more?
disregard. Like,
Okay.
and I was hoping to have an answer this evening.
Sure.
And I didn't. But I would, based on the conversations, I think that the most it's going to be is 25. The total trip, like per student, just being transparent because it's public info anyway, is probably going to be right at about $200 per student.
Wow.
So that kind of puts things in perspective of the commitment that the district has to our metaphor. So,
That's awesome.
It's amazing. And then anything else?
Can I ask how does the district pay for that?
well, so I think you go to a lot of middle schools and the first day of school, kids are given a whole lot of textbooks, right? And here we hire teachers that are competent and can write their own curriculum and match it to standards in what we do. So instead of purchasing textbooks, we're, providing experiences for students, right? So it's how you decide to spend your money, right? The same way it's how we decide to deliver our content. And we know that the best way of doing that for kids this age is to do an inquiry-based field experience. So,
Thanks.
you're very welcome.
Awesome. All right. Anything else? Any other touchstones? No? All right. Well, our next meeting is March 10th, same 7 o'clock. So I hope to see everybody there. If anybody has anything else they need like to add, feel free. But that pretty much does it for the business portion.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Look forward to getting more information about the expeditions.
I look forward to communicating it.
More emails, please.
I'm sorry. I know I blow you people up. So, yeah.
I'm like, every time I see one comes through and it has a thumbs up or a mask emoji or something, I'm like, oh, it's from Mike. Like, I don't even have to look at who it's from. I just know that you're the one that has an emoji on there.
It's not my fault. I read an article that said if there's an emoji in the subject, they're more likely to open it. So
it stands out, and it's actually easier for me to find your emails in my inbox than anybody else's.
Just
And
for that, the next email I send out is going to have an emoji on either side.
Oh no, you're going to double the emoji.
Look for it tonight. It's going out with the survey. So
it's just going to be emojis all the way across to.
I got to see which emojis are available. So get ready for it.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
All right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
And I'll send you the budget numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem.